Hey everyone, welcome back to the realm. I'm Gina.
I'm Rob.
It's just us today. We are running the show today. Let's see here. We still have Brian and Rich out with their family on vacation. Kez is off doing yard work outside, and I'm leisurely sitting in the cool air.
That's her excuse not to do the show was yard work.
Yeah, because it was today's the only day off because we'll have for I think a 14-day stretch. So, and I leave actually after we're done with this recording. I have to leave because I have to go to Madison for business for 3 days, and so I won't be here to help. So,
at least Kez is doing his role there to take care of business and uphold their
end of the marital
yes,
agreement.
yes.
So yeah, we take turns on the yard. I actually enjoy yard work, so I don't mind it. But right now, it's like there was no way I was going to be able to get it done today.
Should I sit up because you look taller than me?
Please think that. I have my laptop propped up on like two different things. It's kind of funny. It's very goofy, but I just feel like the camera angle is better like this. But yours is fine. It looks great. You look great.
Right, thanks. Even the whitewashing
whitewashing. Before we got started, so those of you that are listening, just maybe take a look at some of our videos on YouTube. It's the same content. We just put out the videos as well. But before we start recording, Rob's like, I gotta go fix some of this whitewashing on my face. And because do you have a window open or something?
Yeah, it's still not helping.
And I told him, I said, yes. I mean, because, forbid the fact that anybody would find out you have any light in your life. We have to keep up the dark demeanor of you.
Here's a little bit better. Okay.
We are going to talk about the mysteries, folklore, stories behind Appalachia, the Appalachian Mountains. I don't know what you know about it. If anything, it's kind of like we used to say. So I lived in West Virginia for a while. I'll talk about that in a minute, but we would say it's a West Virginia thing. You wouldn't understand. So what do you know about Appalachia, about the Appalachian Mountains?
What do I know about it? When you had brought this up a long time ago that we were going to do a show of it, I was like, it sounds familiar, but what is the significance to it? And I'm like, why are we doing a show on Appalachia? Because in my head, the only thing that rings out is mountain range. And it took me a long time. And it was before I started reading into it, I realized that my connection to Appalachia is video games.
Oh, really? In what way?
Because I play the Fallout series, and the last one, Fallout 76, takes place in Appalachia.
Gotcha.
So that was it. And then I was like, oh, I see. And then when I started reading the wiki on it, and I'm like, yep, that's the area it's supposed to be in. And as I read further in it, I was like, why are we doing an episode on hillbillies? That doesn't sound exciting at all. What is going on? And then as I read more into it, I was like, oh,
yes,
all about the Mothman and Bigfoot and all these other cryptodes that are found in that area, which then I put it all together that probably has something to do with the hillbillies and all their inbreeding. But then as I read, I understood that a lot of our interpretation of the hillbillies and what goes on in Appalachia, as far as people, is kind of a myth. It's within itself.
Yeah, I must say, so I'm glad you said that. I actually spent my formidable years in West Virginia. My dad died.
As a hillbilly?
Yeah, I've been referred to as a hillbilly, but my family members would be considered hillbillies. I have generations of family that lived in Appalachian Mountains. In West Virginia for many years. So they kind of hailed like all from between North Carolina all the way up through West Virginia. So, so there's a lot that goes into the culture there. It's far stretching, and as the further south you go, the culture kind of changes a little bit. But there's some common threads that go through Appalachia all the way from where it stretches, and probably the friendliest, best group of people I ever knew in my life. Like my best years, I actually still consider West Virginia home. Even though I was born in Ohio and then went back to Ohio after living in West Virginia for those 6-8 years, however long I was there. I think it was 8 years. It was just, I don't know, it was a beautiful time. And if there were industries like where I could survive job wise, I would 100% live there. It's beautiful. So, and the people there are great. And there's just so many natural things that they do. And they're very much into like their natural, holistic living off the land and all of these things. So people call it hillbilly. I call it people being
I
smart
feel
with
like
their
you should
surroundings.
put in some banjo music during that whole bit. Yes. I went to school in Pittsburgh in the
Okay.
90s, and I have driven through West Virginia a few times, and it is beautiful. When you're driving through there and the hills and all the trees it's actually very beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like it's bar none. My best memories as a child was when I lived in West Virginia. So
I wouldn't have stopped the car though,
what? Okay, well maybe because of all the reasons that we're about to talk about.
Yes.
So
Yes, that is why.
so uh, so what I'm gonna do is I'll first just tell our listeners a little bit like the Appalachian Mountains, different people call them different things. That's mostly found in the United States, and it stretches actually from, which I actually didn't even know this, so I started really diving deep into this, but it stretches from Newfoundland in Canada and goes all the way down. It's like 1,500 miles southwest, and they end in central Alabama. So, I mean, it was even larger of a span of mountain range than I knew. West Virginia, though, is actually the only state that lies completely within the Appalachian Mountains. So in that region. So all the other states kind of like partially in it, but West Virginia is literally all this mountain range. West Virginia does have like a hint of another mountain range, like in its eastern border along Virginia. I think it's the Blue Ridge Mountains there. But it's like just barely a whisper of that mountain range on that side of the state. So West Virginia is like deep. So a lot of this focus is going to kind of be in West Virginia, but we're going to talk a little bit about North Carolina as well. And like I said, I grew up there. I moved there when I was 8. I think I left there when I was 14. And I mean, some of my best memories, like the home remedies and the food and the
when you were 14, what year was that? Was that like 70?
Why are we talking about this? So
I was just curious. Realistically, I am curious about what year that was.
So I moved there in 81, and I think I left in like 87. So it would have been 6 years. But the thing is I traveled back and forth there quite a bit as a child. And then after that time, because my family was there, my dad's side of the family was between there and like the Allegheny area in Ohio. So we have family out through there and in North Carolina. So it just, like I said, there was just so much. I mean, there were so many like folklores and mysteries and things they would talk about and the superstitions and everything else. So I've always been fascinated with this area. Also, for those of you that don't know, Kez and I did an episode. I believe Jenny and Rich were on that way early on, season 1, first few episodes. We did one called a haunted road trip. Kez and I went on like a 7-day haunted road trip. I think it was about 7 days. And we spent quite a few of that time in West Virginia, where the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where the Mothman is to have originated from. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I would love for us to go back as a team because there's so many things in West Virginia, like haunted history. There's the asylum, the prison, which Kez and I went to the penitentiary there.
Let's go.
There's just so much. And so what, and in my infinite wisdom, I failed to, until 3 hours before we recorded today, I was like, you know what? Why didn't I put something on my Facebook asking friends and family, like, hey, if you know of any like folklore, like what did you grow up with? Tell me your stories. So I posted something a few hours ago. So if I get some responses back from people, I'll definitely post them underneath, like on our page or underneath the story when we put it out. So I would love to hear other people's views on it. One of them did respond and say something about the Mothman, and another one talked about and the same person had mentioned something about it's like a mad, hold on a second. I gotta look this up. A mad butcher, the Fayette County Mad Butcher. It was a mystery. Yeah. So I would like to look into that maybe for another topic. So those are some really interesting things. But she had also brought up the Mothman. I've been so interested in it that my algorithm on TikTok about 6 months ago took me straight into nonstop Appalachian Mountains, like all the mysteries and everything in there. So there's tons of videos out there. So I would tell people, obviously, everything you see on the internet is not always true, but there are some very fascinating stories that a lot of them are based really in some deep superstitions of the area. And the culture that runs through this region has one common thread pretty much all the way through it. And it's like they came up almost, I guess you'd say, with a code of conduct for being in the mountains. Basically, don't go out after dusk or before dawn. Okay. So this rule number one. This is like the Fight Club. Only this is like the Appalachian Club.
Are you saying that there's like this club and it's all like cryptoids and they just they made these rules and then they just passed them onto the human race? Listen, y'all.
So the humans in this area actually came up with this code of conduct for survival in the woods.
The cryptoids.
Correct. So one is don't go out after dusk or before dawn. Never say its name. So like there's people that won't even say the name. I'm going to say the name in this podcast. We're going to talk about it. Never say the name of these things. One, if you hear your name, no, you didn't. If you see something, no, you didn't. And you don't look, you just keep walking. That is the code of conduct for survival in this area.
Could you use that kind of stuff on your parents? If you hear your name, you didn't?
Right. It's like, Mom, you told me. I didn't. So these are apparently rules that go on in this area. And there's a lot of superstitions. So before we get into the heavy meat and potatoes of this, I wanted to go over some of these superstitions. And I would love, so I think we have this podcast list of all these show ideas that we want to do. And we just have some that'll take us in for years to come unless we put out a podcast every day. It's going to take us a while to get through the list. One of them, though, is about superstitions. So I'm not going to really go into these superstitions per se, but I am going to just kind of read off this list that I found. It was a Blue Ridge Mountain, the Appalachian Travel Guide. It was like a website, and I'll put the link to their website in the show notes. But here's a few of the superstitions before we get into the crazy stuff. Is one, never close a knife that you didn't open because you'll have bad luck for 7 years. Another one is to keep a penny in your washer. Don't know why. Again, we'll have to dig into that in another episode. Always go out the same door you came in. Eat black-eyed peas or collard greens with hog jaw on New Year's Day. Now, I never heard of that, but I did have pinto beans with a ham bone and cornbread on New Year's. So we did have pork on New Year's. Don't wash
You'll wash
clothes
your
on.
clothes on New Year's Day, or you will wash a family member out.
Yes. Are you on the list?
I think so because you read everything word for word.
Okay, number 6. Tell me, you do to 10. Let me hear you till 10.
Number 6, don't sleep on New Year's.
There you go.
Do not. Most people need to. 7, don't do canning or gardening on your period. I'll never have to worry about that. 8, plant your crops under the full moon. Well, you're not supposed to be out at night. How does that make sense?
Well, the full moon can be full during the day
Oh, you are right. Your infinite wisdom. See?
because science.
You have facts to back it up. 9, don't walk under a ladder. If you find yourself under one, don't turn around, back up. Now that's interesting because I did read about how that originated, the don't walking under the ladder, originated in that area of Appalachia.
Yep.
So I actually didn't know about the turnaround or back up. So who knows? It kind of explains a lot of my luck. Don't let anyone sweep under your feet, but unless you're levitating, that can't happen. So you're okay.
Well, I don't know. Like, have you ever? But like, whenever we used to vacuum with our chores, I'd be like, "Lift up your feet," and I'd take the vacuum underneath the person's feet. So maybe that explains my luck.
It doesn't say if you do it to other people. So I mean, I guess that's a way to curse people. You chase them out the broom and sweep under their feet.
Yeah, maybe. Why don't you finish out this list? I want to hear you. I want to hear your.
Oh, you said to 10, but here we go.
Let's do it.
Number 11. Never. I don't know why I counted off the numbers. Never give someone a set of knives as a gift. Think of all those people that have given knife sets at weddings. They've cursed themselves. They don't even know. If you give them to newlyweds, oh no, it will cut their love. That explains a lot in my relationship.
That's why 50% of marriages end in divorce. Nope, no editing on this one. No, maybe that's why we have a 50% divorce rate. All those cutlery we put on those wedding registries. Stop it, people. Just don't do it anymore.
That's crazy.
Buy your own knives.
You have to buy your own knives, man. Well, quit playing around. If a black cat crosses your path, turn and go a different way. Now, I have never done that because I always thought like, oh, kitty, and just kept going for it. It's never been a weird thing for me. So, never repay salt that you have borrowed. Okay. I don't think I've ever done that. I always thought that was like a
sugar.
It's not in the 50s, right? Or in the 40s. Can I borrow sugar? I didn't think people really did that, but maybe they did.
No, I did. I mean, I remember as a kid, like my mom would send me next door. My aunt had sent me next door. Can you go see so and so has a cup of sugar, cup of flour? I don't think I ever did salt, but I did do stuff like flour and sugar.
Salt always has this weird magical property, doesn't it?
Yes.
We could probably do a whole episode on salt.
Yeah.
If a bad storm is coming, put a 2-edged axe into a stump facing the storm to ensure the storm goes around you. So if you only have a 1-edged axe, you're screwed.
Oh shit! I only have a 1-edged axe.
Right? So you have to get like a battle axe or something. And my axe, my kid broke because he decided he wanted to chop up all the wood. If you spill salt, throw a pinch over your left shoulder so you won't have bad luck.
I do this to this day.
Again, with the salt and the magical properties, and I also didn't know that this originated from there. And I've done it before, but I don't really believe in superstitions like that. So
I don't either, but there's some things that have just been so ingrained with me since I was younger that I just do it. So like if I spill salt, it's automatically going over my shoulder.
Did you just say ingrained?
Salt. You see what I did there?
Your infinite wisdom even goes into your humor.
What we got next?
When you drop your fork, it means a woman is coming to visit. Woo! If you drop a knife, a man is coming to visit. Don't cut your baby's hair before their first birthday.
Now I read, so besides that, it was something also about like cutting your baby's fingernails. Like you shouldn't cut your baby's fingernails. You should bite them, because if you cut them instead of biting them before they
Ew.
turn one, that they supposedly will turn out to be like a thief or somebody that steals things. So that's another one I read
Oh, that explains it. My mom probably cut him instead of bit him.
somewhere.
Your baby has to fall off the bed before their first birthday.
Well, I
That
have one
explains a
out of
lot of
four
West
that happens.
Virginia. Oh, I got to stop making those jokes. We're going to lose
Yeah,
our
no,
fan base.
that's home to me.
West Virginia has set themselves up. No, I get it. It's the whole society outlook on West
Yes,
Virginia. I'll try
that's right.
really hard
And you
not
know
to.
what? And you know what? They know it, so they took the power back in it.
Okay, good, because it's going to be difficult for me to not make those jokes. Anyways, I also, being in Pittsburgh, a lot of my friends that I made out there were from West Virginia, so I'm pretty
Oh,
well
really?
versed in those jokes.
And
So
did you grow up in Pittsburgh?
no, I went to school there from '94 to '97,
Oh,
and
okay.
I had been to Charleston,
Okay, yeah.
and during a really bad storm, so bad the house I was at, they went up to the river, and the boat was like up higher than the ground. The river was moving so fast. It was really weird. It was a really weird thing to see, like water higher than the land, but it was moving so fast. It like wasn't flooding. It was weird. And then I've driven through there because I've done some shows somewhere, but that was a long time ago. So I don't even remember that. I'd only been there a couple times, but several of the people I went to that school were there, and they had the accents, and you know my Wisconsin accent trumped theirs, so there was a lot of jokes. It was fun.
Well, when I moved to West Virginia, and then like from Ohio, I remember by the time I made it to junior high school, the kids, like there was, especially there was this one guy in particular. I mean, we were friends, but they would make fun of my accent, and I said, "I have an accent." And so because like I would ask to borrow a pen, and I remember this one guy, Sean, and he was like, "A pen? You mean a pen? I got a pen you can borrow." And so, he gave me the pen. But then by the time I moved back to Ohio, then everybody in Ohio thought I had a Southern accent. So if I talk to family or friends that are from that area or still live that area and still have the accent, my accent will be back ever so slightly to moderately, depending on how long that conversation was. It's so weird. So I guess probably I did have an accent at some point, because after phone conversations, like it's almost like my voice adapts to like the cadence and draw,
Ian,
I guess.
I gotta borrow
Pian.
Ian.
You mean a pian? I got one of those.
If cows are lying down or leaves are upside down, it's going to rain.
That's
Now,
true.
I skipped one. I'll go back to. I skipped like two, but I always thought the leaves are upside down had to do with actually something of them. Oh, yeah, on a tree. And I don't know why I was thinking on the ground, but right. So I didn't know if that was a superstition or not, because I felt like when it was going to rain, sometimes trees have a different color. And I never really studied it, but like, how do leaves turn upside down?
Yeah, it's like usually when you can see the backside of the leaves, you're getting rain or a storm.
Yeah, but how does it move? It's not like they have a nervous system and joints.
No, yes, they do. Actually,
Did you just say no? Yes, they do.
yeah, because so I'm a tree hugger, and we have to do an episode on trees, because there is literally like people, kind of like airbenders, that they have relationships with like living things around them, meaning like plants and trees and things like that, where trees will respond to touch or speaking. So we'll talk about that another time. I digress. But so I believe they have some sort of something.
Okay, let's go back to the baby thing.
Yeah, go back to the baby.
Okay, run a chicken over your baby to keep it from getting chicken pox. That I bet checks out. It seems like it's scientifically based, and I recommend everybody do that instead of getting a vaccine. So don't let a pregnant woman see a dead person, or the baby will have a birthmark.
That's kind of creepy. Now, I have heard that like birthmarks are actually how you died in your past life. So this might go hand in hand.
I thought birthmarks were where they grabbed you with those claw things and pulled you out.
The forceps.
Yeah.
Oh, some people can have marks after that, but like different birthmarks in different areas of the body is supposed to denote like how you died in your past life.
So people might not have a birthmark if they just died of natural causes?
Potentially. Unless it was like heart disease, maybe you got a mole or a birthmark or something there. I don't know.
I'm sure that's scientific. Scientifically sound as well.
Very.
Wear a buckeye in your bra to ward off
rheumatism. Which is arthritis.
So, I guess men are screwed. Well, not all. I'm down to a B cup, so I guess
you could wear whatever. Well, like just you can wear it in your tank top. But I had not ever heard of this, but I had heard of other herbal mountain remedies to try to like avoid and or like slow down the progress of rheumatism, which is actually like autoimmune version of like arthritis. So it's not like osteoarthritis or arthritis. When you break something, it's like from an inflammatory response in the body.
Witchcraft.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically. What is buckeye?
Buckeye is like a nut, or like
that sounds comfortable in your bra.
But it's a smooth shell.
There's a whole other set of jokes that go there. What is our show rated?
You're doing so well controlling yourself. It's a round smooth shell. I don't know how to describe it. Like, we used to get them and like peel them open. So,
well, I get it. All you had to say was you had to put a nut in your bra, and we could have moved on. But
yes, you have 12-year-olds hosting the show today.
So put a buckeye nut in your bra, and you're fine. Hang a horseshoe upside down and keep the good luck from running out, which is something else that I feel like. I've heard that and I see it, and if I ever see somebody hanging up a horseshoe and it's upside down, I'm always like, oh my God, they're doomed. But I didn't know that also stemmed from that area. So
yes,
all the superstitions.
That's another one. So apart from the salt, I have a horseshoe that I have had since I was like 9 years old. My family, it's from West Virginia, actually. They used to train horses. They had like horse arenas and stuff, and they like provided lodge like stables for horses and did training. And so I would go help out there to kind of keep me busy. And so I got my first horseshoe there, and I still have that same horseshoe, and it hangs in every house I've ever had since then.
Well, I'm glad you explained it, because when you said horse arena, I thought they might be fighting to their death. And that's how you obtained the horseshoe. Because I was going to say, what happened to the horse?
No.
You said horse arena, and I was like, that's like cockfighting.
No. There we go. 12-year-old host of the show.
That's rooster fighting. You didn't know that?
Yes, I knew. I was
your mind,
your choice of words.
That's what it's called. That's a scientific fact of all the things we've talked about.
Because
that is a scientific fact. So, let's see.
23.
23. Where? No.
Yeah.
That's a 23 is a bra.
Oh, that's right.
24. Hold your breath when you pass a cemetery, or you'll be the next to die. Now,
I've heard that one.
I have heard that before too, but it's also like people would be dropping like flies if that were the case.
Yes, that's true.
Maybe when you're in a small town and you have that tiny little plot, you're like, oh, that makes sense. But
yeah. But I also heard it a version of it is like where they'll steal your soul or something. So my kids, I don't know where they ever heard it, but they would always hold their breath riding past the cemetery. It was not something I taught them.
They would just drive in circles around the cemetery until they got quiet.
I'll get you guys to shut up.
That's great.
I map out all my travels to anywhere I'm going with my kids. Go past all cemeteries.
Woo, that explains a lot too. So, if you see a white horse, you'll have good luck.
I did hear that.
Now, in the apocalypse, what color horse did Death ride upon? A white horse.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like good luck.
Yeah, that's true.
Hold your feet up when you cross a railroad track or you'll lose your boyfriend.
Now, I heard something about, pardon me, I did hear something about lifting your feet up when crossing railroad track. I did it a lot as a kid, especially when I rode the bus in West Virginia. Somewhere I heard it. So every time we go over the railroad tracks, we lift up our feet. It never had anything to do with a boyfriend that I remember. I mean, I was little, so that wasn't a factor. But I can say I have heard that one, and I've like actually participated in it.
Not like it was a well-known thing. I don't know. I was told it was just you'd have bad luck, but it also is a problem when you take your feet off the brake sometimes crossing the railroad tracks, and I think that's when I stopped doing that. And then you have to think about so that's only been in effect until they invented the railroad. So people used to have to jump the tracks if they were walking, and if you had a horse, your feet were already up. And then if you were in a carriage, is that the same thing? I put too much thought into this.
Yeah, I think you're going too far.
Yeah, I know. Because I just think it's a relatively new thing. We have superstitions about it. If you're walking with someone and you have to go on the same side, if you're walking with someone, you have to go on the same side of a post or obstacle, or it will break your friendship.
That is 100% to this day. I still do that. If Kez even tries to go on the opposite side of anything, I freak the fuck out. Like, I'm not joking. And I'm not like, I guess I am superstitious considering now I've said 3 that I still do. Yeah. But this is one that anybody I'm with, anybody that I'm walking with, I try everything possible not let anything go between us. And I learned that in West Virginia as a child.
Now, I only do that as if me and Amy are like holding hands so I can yank her around the same side because that's funny to me. But I don't really otherwise know that I do that. I've never heard it before. Now, Here's a problem I'm having right now is don't wash clothes on Sunday because I'm already in the middle of it.
Well, you just screwed yourself today.
Again, if your nose is itching, that means company is coming.
That I've heard.
Well, I don't know about that either because nobody ever comes and sees me. Open the window when someone dies and cover the mirrors so that their soul can leave.
Yes, I've heard that too.
Now that's interesting, but
if someone dies at home, you're supposed to open the window and cover the mirrors. That I did hear.
My sister once went to get some kind of palm reading or something with a psychic, and the psychic told her that my grandfather, who's never been to this house, resides in it and watches over me, which is maybe I should do that then. Leave the windows open, cover the mirrors. Like, bro, you're making me uncomfortable sometimes. Watching over me.
I keep clearing my throat. I have to say I'm uncomfortable. I mean, I'm sorry. And if I were you, I'd be uncomfortable if I felt like somebody was watching over me all the time too. But,
yeah, it wasn't until I was told that. I'm like, now I'm embarrassed. So
Shit,
Oh.
what did he see me do?
I know, right? She's like,
I know whenever
he's probably blushing.
whenever people tell me like, oh, your dad's always watching over you, I'm like, nope, not all the time.
I hope not.
Not all the time.
Look away. Look away. So, hang a mirror by the door to protect against evil.
I have heard that. Not practice it, but I have heard that.
I have a mirror in my foyer, but not by the back door, so that explains a lot.
There you go.
Never leave a rocking chair rocking, or you'll invite spirits.
So, like, when you get up, just put your hands on it to stop it from rocking, or I guess.
I'm guessing, and that's weird because we believed that my grandmother might have been haunting this house when we first moved in. We had brought some of her belongings into this house. One of it was a rocking chair.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, we should investigate your house.
I think, and that's a whole other story, is that I had a conversation with her after one of the weirdest experiences, and the things that were happening are no longer happening. So,
yeah, they say to do that, and it works. Well, thanks for going through that exhaustive list of superstitions that are prevalent in that from that region.
3-part episode. Now that we haven't even got to the mythos yet.
Well, the myths we're just gonna kind of we'll go through. We're gonna focus on one. And
the Bell Witch.
We're gonna talk about that. That's what we're gonna go on to talk about now. So. First, you mentioned the Mothman. So as far as the superstitions go, I've heard of some of them. I think you've heard of some of them. And I think that it's not just specifically from that region, but a lot of those myths, I guess, originated in those areas. Some of it had to do with not just the settlers that came there. Some of it also had to do with Native American legends. And then also we have, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, we have a whole other culture that was brought in. People forget that it wasn't just, the European white settlers. We had people that were forced to this country under atrocious circumstances from their places, like in Africa, from different countries in Africa. And so some of their traditions and things that they had came to be here, which has to do with hoodoo. And we'll get onto that in a moment, but there's a lot of the big mix of things there. And it's no surprise that, quote, it originated there. I mean, that's where people first settled anyway. So, but it is funny that just like in the Appalachian area, it's pretty consistent through the whole region, basically, some of the main thread of these stories. But with these mysteries, you talked about the Mothman. I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of the Mothman. There was even a movie with Richard Gere in it called Mothman Prophecies. I don't know if you've ever seen that, or the Mothman Prophecy. And so if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's definitely worth watching. It is based on a true story and true stories from that area. And the Mothman, like I said, we went on a haunted road trip, and so if anybody wants to catch that episode, you can definitely listen to that. We have some things that we talked about there. The Mothman himself is considered to be like a very tall creature. It's actually been witnessed all over the world in different versions of him, but the one specifically in Point Pleasant, they have taken such a claim to him that they even have a statue in the middle of their town center. It's a very large statue, and it's a very long, tall creature with long, sharp claws and big winged, kind of like wings coming off the back. And they claim that this Mothman was responsible for creating, like terrorizing people in the area. There's a swampy area where these TNT bunkers are out in the woods, which Kez and I went and investigated those TNT bunkers, in fact. And I thought I'd love to go back there with you guys. So it's just the coolest experience. Love to go. We stayed in the haunted hotel in Point Pleasant. The hosts there, the owners of the hotel, were awesome. We almost had the whole hotel to ourselves, basically. I don't even know if there was any other guests at the time. We went to the Mothman Museum. The TNT bunkers out in the middle of the woods were very cool. We got to see the area where supposedly the Mothman lives. And the TNT bunkers themselves are supposed to be haunted. So again, if you want to know more about that, you can go back to that early episode. But one of the things that he was accused of doing was causing the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which is in Point Pleasant, and that went over the river. And there was about 45 or so people that died in that tragedy. The bridge had collapsed, and supposedly people had reported seeing the Mothman at the top of the bridge, like cutting the wires with his claws or doing something with the wires of the claws, causing it to collapse and people died. You look like you want to say something.
Because in the Mothman's defense, it has also been said that he was trying to warn people of impending doom.
That's true. That when people would see him, or when he'd come out and be visible, was yes, that he was warning people of impending doom. So there were quite a few sightings before the Silver Bridge incident that happened. And actually, one of the people that had responded, she's like my second mom that lived in West Virginia. She had responded to my Facebook post earlier and had said that when she was a kid, her and her family drove back and forth across that bridge a lot in their travels several times a year when they do vacations or whatever, and that they were due to travel over that bridge less than 2 weeks after the disaster had happened. So like there was a trip already planned to go down there in that same time. And when we were staying in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there was a small diner on the main street, and the woman that owned it, sweetest lady, we went and had most of our meals at this place just because it reminded me of home. It reminded me of my grandma and aunts, great aunts cooking. So I loved being there. And her husband actually died in that tragedy. He was a police officer or sheriff, and her I think it was her son, but anyway, her child and her husband died in this tragedy. He was in the car on the bridge when this happened. So she was able to like share her thing behind it. Yeah. So it was very interesting to meet somebody so close to that horrific event. And there's also just another museum in town that kind of talks about all that, like the bridge itself. And then of course it was reconstructed. But so anyway, so that's one of the mysteries, is the Mothman. Again, there's more you can read about it. There's been movies, TV shows, lots have been done about it.
Well, and if you want to see the pictures, you can look up those pictures they supposedly took in Chicago of it flying around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a sighting in Chicago. I think there was like sightings as late as like 2017 at the time that we had done that first episode.
That was around O'Hare.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we talked about that in that first episode. And then the next thing that we're all familiar with, obviously you brought up, was Bigfoot. I mean, who doesn't have their own sightings of Bigfoot? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. So I just wanted to mention that was one of the myths for that area. And then you talked about the Bell Witch. That is another popular one too. And I would actually, after doing some reading, I would really like to maybe do an episode on this.
I would love to do an episode on it because I feel like it may be popular, but sometimes I feel like it's such a great story. It's a horrifying story. And it was something as a kid that I got a book when I was in 6th grade, and it had really lengthy, detailed ghost stories. And it is the first time I ever read about the Bell Witch. And it is such this, I don't remember, this book's called Haunted Houses. I don't remember the author, and obviously it's from way back since I was in 6th grade at the time. But nonetheless, like, I will still to this day read that story because, and I have a book and I haven't read it, and a good friend of mine, Brian Stemp, loaned it to me, and I just haven't read it yet. But it's a big book, and I would love to read it. I would love to do an episode on this.
Yeah, I would love to as well.
Don't know it. Don't know the story though.
Yeah, I can give a shortened version of it. Is that I guess there's this guy named John Bell who's, like, I guess prominent in this area in Tennessee. So the story, I guess, largely centers in this area in Tennessee. And I'm trying to think, what was the area? Let's see here. Adams, Tennessee is where it's at. So with this, the Bell Witch, I think, actually manifests in other forms throughout Appalachia with different tales, which we'll talk about. That's like the final one we're going to talk about, because I feel like it's taken on many forms and might be loosely related. But this one in particular was based around a real woman that was believed to be a witch. And I guess this John Bell kind of cheated her in a land deal. And so she came after him in the only way she could, and that was in a supernatural way, and vowed to haunt him and his family and for generations to come. So I think around 1817 is from what this article had said, was that's when reports of strange happenings in the area happened with relations to Bell Witch. So he, like, apparently this John Bell, himself, his family, and people in the area kind of became stalked by this evil entity that they call the Bell Witch, that they attributed to this Kate Bath woman. And apparently she was able to shapeshift, manipulate the surroundings and the physical environment, like change the temperature, change the weather. Apparently it could had a disembodied voice, so it could speak, or it could speak in the forms that it would show up in. And also some reports say that it could like travel at super high speeds. Kind of makes me think of a vampire. But
poisoned him.
Yeah, yeah.
Of poison and other weird liquid, and yeah, there's a lot to it.
And like the guy himself, like John, like had written like his own. Hi, kitten. John himself had written like some of his own accounts about this, and I think he like reached out to a friend or something. He's like, "Hey, you got to come over. You got to see this," because I guess the daughter was experiencing a lot of stuff. The daughter was getting like scratched, and the covers pulled off of her, and scaring them and the family. Showed up as a dog one time that he shot at, and then it disappeared. So this friend that he invited over actually came over and witnessed it for himself. And then from there, word had spread that this Bell Witch was terrorizing the area. And I'm going to do a direct quote from this Blue Ridge Mountains travel guide. It says, according to legend, Jackson and his party set up their tents outside of the Bell home. One man, claiming he had knowledge of how to deal with the witches, boasted that his silver bullets were keeping the witch at bay. To punish him, the witch set her sights on the man, giving him a beating that had Jackson's men begging to leave. So John Bell died a mysterious death in 1820, but apparently the Bell Witch continued to haunt his family. She even forced his daughter Betsy, who she terrorized as a young child, break off her engagement with some guy before eventually disappearing for good. So if you want to know more about this legend, we will definitely do an episode on it. Maybe we should add that to our October lineup. We should just throw that in there and do that for an October lineup. In October, we do a main episode every week. So we hit it hard. We do a full episode every Monday, and then hit it hard. And then every Wednesday, we tell spooky stories of listeners have written in. So I have several stories lined up for us to read. So if you want us to read your story during the month of October, send it to connectedrealm@gmail.com. That's connectedrealm@gmail.com. So back to this. If you want to experience more about this legend yourself, you can go to the Bell Witch Cave in Adams, Tennessee, which I think we should just go. I think there was one there was a TV show. I think Ghost Adventures actually investigated the Bell Witch Cave. Actually, I think that can be found in one of their seasons. So maybe you should lead the episode.
I would love to lead that episode.
Okay, it's yours. It's yours. Coming in October, you heard it. We're going to hold his feet to the fire. It's going to happen. All right. So next was called the Brown Mountain Light that I got from this article, and it's near Morganton, North Carolina. And it said that there was like a horrific battle between Cherokee and Catawba warriors. And that legend has said that it was like very brutal. Many Catawba people had died from this, and that the Catawba women went in the evenings by torchlight, searching on this mountainside and through this terrain for their fathers, their sons, their husbands, their brothers. And people claim to still be able to see the torchlight to this day. The first reported sighting, it says, was in 1771, and that the lights are typically seen at night, and especially after rainfall. I couldn't find any significance why, but according to the travel site, it said that the Brown Mountain Overlook in Wiseman's View Overlook and Lost Cove Cliff Overlook are the most popular places to see these lights if you want to experience them for yourself. And all of these locations are located off of North Carolina 105 South or North Carolina 181 near Asheville and Boone. And they offer great scenic vistas any time of day. Now, Kez and I have been there. When we travel to Asheville multiple times, we love it. It's one of our favorite places to go. We love Boone, North Carolina. We love that whole area. We've been hiking all through there. But I did not know about these lights at the time we were there, or else I probably would have tried to see them myself. But so those are one of the things as we move further south.
Yeah, it's also recommended to go at night because you can't see the lights during the day.
Is that how science works?
Just a little helpful. Just trying to be helpful then.
So scientific today, I can't handle it. I just our new logo should be because science.
Because science. Yes.
So up next is the Flatwoods Monster located in Braxton County, West Virginia. You're probably able to see that on the website that you're on. Apparently in 1952, there were some kids playing at a school called Flatwoods Elementary School. Very creative. And they had seen a light shoot across the sky. So they wanted to go looking for it. They stopped and grabbed their mom, told her about it, and then I don't know, somehow she knew some guy that was part of the National Guard, so he was a National Guardsman. She asked him to go with them to look at the lights. So they all went. They went to the area they think it crashed, and then when they got there, they saw a 10-foot tall creature with twisted hands. We'll post pictures of all these things. And it was, I guess, levitating off the ground. And there was also like a pulsing red light going on. And so when they locked eyes with it or had seen it, apparently it hissed at them, and they were like, "Well, nope," and they took off running. And so the event itself actually made it to national news to the point where the Air Force actually did an inquiry on it. Now, I did not look into like what happened with that inquiry. Again, this is something we could do for another episode because I don't want to focus on just like all these in particular because it could be a 10-part episode if we did that.
Right.
But
see, now that I just looked at these pictures, I've heard this story, but I also heard this story as being that the Flatwood Monster was lizard people. Was
really?
The lizard people, but now when I see this picture, yeah, it doesn't look like it at all. And it's funny too because it goes back to the video game. That thing is actually in the video game. So
is it really?
Yes.
That's crazy. See, you've been exposed to it all along. Well, if you want to know more about it, people do travel all over to go to the area to learn more or try to experience the Flatwood Monster. There's a Flatwood Monster Museum. It's in Sutton, West Virginia. If you want to learn more. Again, I think we should just make this part of our road trip when we go down there, hit a couple of these areas. It'd be kind of cool. Apparently there's stores, restaurants along the way that have like Flatwoods Monster merch and themed sandwiches. So like we could go on the hunt for these monsters and eat a themed sandwich at the same time.
I've also I feel like the next group is probably I have ancestral blood with these people.
I do. With
Moon-eyed people.
Oh, the moon-eyed people, the next one, yes. So you knew where we were going with this. So, yeah, the next thing that's there that I had not ever heard of, but I wanted to mention this because I thought it was kind of funny, is the moon-eyed people. And apparently this came from Cherokee legend in the area that's now known as Murphy, North Carolina. but they reported to see what they had called moon-eyed people, and apparently Cherokee kind of feared them, or just were afraid of them, didn't want them around. But they were described as short, stout, white-skinned. Another thing that I read said they were very pale, very white, with bearded faces and large blue eyes. So
I'm not short, and I don't have blue eyes, but
so you might be a hybrid.
They're so sensitive to the sun that they remain nocturnal, and
yes,
that's me. So and I can see a lot of it. The beard. And I don't like to go out in the sun mostly because of people. But I can see what they didn't understand back then was that these emo natives were probably didn't need to be feared, but people they don't understand subcultures, right? So
well, the funny part though. So they were saying that their eyes were so sensitive they only came out at night. So the Cherokee waited until it was a full moon, hoping that the moonlight would be so bright that it would blind them, and then they would drive them out of their underground caves that they reportedly lived in. But the funny thing is that everybody was saying, people are saying, oh, they were just mistaken. These legends were just actually European settlers that came over, and they just didn't, realize that, at that point, the relationship, not relationship, but the fighting or whatever hadn't started, the true invasion of the Europeans into this country. And so that probably was who they were looking at. I mean, it sounds like it's either that or it's a leprechaun. I mean, somebody.
Or maybe this is related to the black-eyed children.
It could be, but so the people that were saying there was actually European settlers that the Cherokee were reported to have seen, and not these moon-eyed people. The funny thing is that the Cherokee legend actually of these people goes back hundreds of years actually before European settlers ever came. So it begs the question, in this article, it talked about it, was it that it was a whole different race of people, or was it that early European settlers that came here before Columbus did and just didn't get credit for it, is what the article went on.
But even so, I don't really think there's many 3-foot Europeans.
No,
I don't believe seems so. But the Cherokee legends, such as the black-eyed people that go way back before the Europeans.
So there is a museum there. There's called Cherokee County Historical Museum that talks about these legends, and they actually have a 3-foot sculpture that was found in the 1840s from excavation that they believe was carved to represent the moon-eyed people, and it is available to view at this Cherokee County Historical Museum. So who knows who they were?
Say it.
What?
The Wampus.
Cat. I'm not going to do that one. That's what
you got to say Wampus.
Okay, so there are a few others.
Just say Wampus.
We can talk about it in another show, but there is a Wampus cat, which is where the term cattywampus comes from, actually. There's a whole thing into this. But there's a few other, but really...
But the name is fun. The fun
yes, the Wampus. The Wampus. So that is another one. There's a few others. There's quite a few that go into there that we can probably just maybe post some information on just to make it fun so people can read. But the craziest mystery for me cuts back to the beginning when we talked about if you see it, no you didn't thing. Because they say it's the one who shall not be named. It kind of reminds me of that Metallica song that's the chorus goes, the thing that should not be. It's just kind of creepy like that. But I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the word. Are you ready?
Pazuzu. No?
So they're called paint.
What?
Paint? No, not paint. Paint. Haints. I mean, depending on how you use it, ain't been anybody here for about 5 years.
Well, no.
That could
No,
be it.
I
But
just said haint, and I'm doomed now.
yes, you're doomed. It is haint.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you for the reassurance. Yes,
you
you are
are.
doomed.
Um, but haint is kind of like a broad thing. Again, remember how we talked about Bell Witch, and it just had this that I feel like it translates into different stories. So I think the Bell Witch is kind of can be rooted a bit in this particular thing. So the haints are believed to be kind of like an entity similar to a witch. I think they're also called like boohags. Is another word if I'm saying that correctly. I don't even remember actually. So, but I think that's it. But so they've been reported as entities. They kind of have like a cryptid um, type, I guess, allure to them. Like people talk about them as being cryptids. Sometimes they're as these witches or entities that are basically like skinwalkers that they like take over people's being. And I don't want to go too much into the haints as far as how it is tied to an African American cultural uh,
Voodoo.
stories, yes, from hoodooism, because we do have a guest that we were supposed to have on last season, and unfortunately, she had some things come up with her family that she had to take care of. But she is an author and somebody who has specialized and studied hoodooism and voodooism. So she is going to come on our show for an interview. Lovely woman. Her name's Maria. She we had read one of her stories last October for our Halloween special special episodes. So she is going to come on and talk to us at some point about the hoodooism. So I don't want to get too much into that because she's going to be able to bring a whole different perspective to that and really kind of educate us on that. But the things with the haints is so it's almost like they're separate. Some people put the cryptids with the haints, and sometimes people like separate them out. So they're believed to like kind of sometimes they're in the trees, living in the trees. The story is like when you walk through the woods, you shouldn't look into the trees at all, especially if you happen to have to be outside after dusk. Definitely don't look into the trees, but hence why if you see something, no, you didn't. There's reports of people if they're out after dark, it will call after you, so like it'll say your name. So that a lot of the stories go like, if you ever hear your name being said from behind you, no, you didn't. Don't turn around. Don't look back. Just keep walking. Keep going. Like ignore them. Pretend like they don't exist. This is such like so richly ingrained in this area. I can't speak for all the area, and I can't say that that's 100% true. But I've seen so many videos and read so many stories and talked to so many people who have verified like that yes, this is like folklore in the area, that there's something to be said about it being I guess a popular belief at some point. Now whether or not it's still prevalent now, some of these people that are on TikTok say yes, this is still alive and prevalent. They feel this way, they believe this way. But
That's something I've never heard of.
the
Was
hate,
the haint?
that's because you're
But
not
it's
supposed
all
to say it.
But what little bit that I know about it is haint is actually just a southern pronunciation of haunt,
Yeah.
and that there is a haint blue, which is a color they paint houses down there to keep away the haint.
Mm-hmm. So when you get into areas of like South Carolina, down through to Alabama, specifically those areas had like plantations on them because remember this is very rich in the culture for the African American culture by the people that were forced over here. So in the hoodooism and voodooism, um, there's a lot of different things that you do to like counteract spells or to like, ward off evil spirits and things like that. So one of the things they did was painted this blue. And apparently the blue is actually called paint blue.
It is.
Yeah. So, but people, I guess, don't want to say the name. And so,
we've said it like how many times now?
but having said that, uh, so the haints themselves are creatures or beings or entities, whatever you want to call it, but apparently they are preoccupied with counting. So one of the ways that you can buy your time or keep them occupied until sun comes up is to put things on your porch or out in your yard, give them things that they can count. Which
so
is why.
Vampires.
What do you mean by vampires? The count. I get it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. You got one of my jokes. Oh, the episode's worth it now.
So like, you know, the old like broomsticks made of like you know, like branches, like pieces of branches, stuff like that, or even just, you know, whisk brooms and things like that. Leaving a broom out that have many pieces to it, like they would be preoccupied with counting those. So that's why sometimes people would hang brooms above their door or have broomsticks or on their front porch. They would also make things like some people make these glass jars and seal it with different items in it, or like shells, sand, rocks, things like that. It can't be opened. So the thought is they'd have to keep turning this jar all the way around so they could continue to count these pieces inside of this jar, and it would keep them busy so it wouldn't attack or hurt anyone at nighttime. So it's supposed to keep them busy until morning. So there's several other things that people would do. When you get down to the area where you were talking about the blue that they would paint the porches, it would be like in the ceilings, they'd paint the porch that blue to like ward off the haint. Again, you would see sometimes broomsticks hanging from these porches as well.
I also don't understand where that I don't know where that blue came from, I should say.
Yeah, I don't. So there's a lot that has to do with the color, which I think when we have Maria on, I would love for her to like clarify some of that stuff in Hoodooism, because I know that colors and different like ritualistic things to ward off evil spirits are. It's very like there's very clear instructions on how to do things. So I'd be interested to hear more about that. But so as far as like the haints go, or these cryptids, whatever it is that's out in the trees, it is enough that people feel like that they're present and they're there. There's one video in particular that I have not been able to find on TikTok again. I had saved it and I wanted to share it with everybody, and because when I wanted to do this episode long ago, but it's no longer on there, and I'm going to see if I can't try to locate it and put it out on our Facebook page. But there was a young man that was driving through that area with his family, and they felt like they had seen this cryptid coming out of the woods onto the roadway, and it crossed over top of their car, and they were like very afraid, very freaked out. They had recorded this just after it had happened, so it was like the heightened thing. So whether it was real or not, I don't know, but I would love to share that video for because the kid seemed pretty believable. He seemed pretty like shook up from the whole experience. And the area that he was describing, then I went and took a look at that area at the time. And I remember doing some like folklore searches in that area. And there were a lot of reports of cryptids in that area through generations. So I think that the scariest story with the Appalachia area, with Appalachian Mountains, are these cryptids that people report to see. So I think that, at the end of the day, the big message is, if you're going to go to this area, if you hear your name, no, you didn't. If you saw something, no, you didn't. And keep your eye on the door while it starts.
But you know that if I go out there and I see something, I'm going to be like, oh, I'm checking that out.
Yes.
And if I hear somebody call my name, I'm going to be like, I'm going to go check it out, right?
You're going to go,
how I have to do.
Can I help you? You're going to be with the serving platter.
I'm just going to be walking out there like, I want to see whatever that is and get some pictures and talk to it, and then we'll have issues after that, but we'll take care of that as a cat.
Make sure to bring
we'll cross that when we get there.
I'll bring the sage.
Yes.
I don't know. There's just so much. We really could like talk forever on this, and there's so much more we could like dive into deeper. But I
Like
just wanted to kind
like
of.
cougar jokes with the kitty wampus because it talks about cougars.
It does.
You ruined that bit too, so
I
that's
ruined that. I
okay.
know. I get a lot of cougar jokes. My situation, I get all the cougar jokes. Um, but having said that, there are quite a few more. We can, if you want, post that on Facebook if you want to talk about the Wampus cat. But for those of you listening, we'll post the videos. I know normally on our YouTube videos we kind of bring stuff up and show people pictures of it and everything, but we had so much to go over today. We wanted to just kind of stick to that. We'll post some video or some photos on our Facebook page. So if you are watching us on YouTube, thank you. Head on over to our Facebook page. The Realm Paranormal Podcast and Investigations is how you can find us. And our profile picture is the background that you see behind us now. So what do you think, Rob? What do you think?
I think that we need a field trip to West Virginia or in that area would be great. I found it to be very interesting that a lot of your common legends are all come from that area, which was also I just didn't realize a lot. I guess, geologically put together some of the cryptoids that we talked about being in that area, especially with like the Bell Witch. To me, which is one of my favorite topics as far as supernatural and paranormal go. So. Yeah,
I mean, such a rich history that I mean, how could we not talk about it? I feel like people don't bring up that area enough. Like, I haven't seen or heard enough podcasts or people talking about it. So, like, hopefully, we did it a little justice.
Right. So I feel like that's why I have to have more faith in when your topics, because I was really like. Oh, great. We're talking about hillbillies.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is going to be the best episode ever. I can't wait. And then I'm like, oh.
Well, West Virginia, I am a
mountain mama.
I am a mountain mama, tried and true hillbilly myself. I love you. Love you, West Virginia. Always will. Pinto beans and cornbread for life. So hopefully we'll take a little field trip down there, and stay there and get some evidence and do some things. So with that, Rob, thanks for just diving right in and reading off those superstitions and taking over. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I hope we at least like sparked a little bit of interest into this area, and definitely do some research yourself. And if you hear of any stories or find anything, send them our way. connectedrealm@gmail.com. And we also, what do we do? What do we do besides podcasts, Rob?
We do investigations. So if you have any odd goings on or know someplace that interesting you would like to see us investigate, please let us know.
Yep. We will do it. We will do some live investigations as well. We just secured ourselves a brand new camera system that has audio, which is going to eliminate the need for some digital recorders, and with some streaming capabilities. Oh, hi, kitten. So we got a lot coming up, but yes, if there's anything, it doesn't have to just be ghosts. If it is weird, we are wild about it. So, with that, I think we're done for the day.
Very good.
All right. Until next time, check out all of our other episodes, and we will see you soon. Stay weird. Ciao.
Bye.